My name is Jason Creel, and today I'm going to talk to you about what to do to your lawn in the springtime. Now I'm talking about warm season grasses, Bermuda, Zoysia, Centipede, and St Augustine. And I'm going to tell you what to do, and I'm also going to tell you what not to do to get the results hopefully you're looking for on your warm season grass this spring. Let's get started right now. Today's video is sponsored by my friends at Yardbook. If you're looking for a software to manage your lawn care business, consider Yardbook. Go to yardbook.com. All right, so I've got my sunglasses on because of the glare in my eyes, pardon that, but I am showing you my Bermuda front yard here, and it's got some flaws. We are in late March, and I am in the Birmingham, Alabama market. So if you're further south, a warmer climate, you're most likely going to have more green in your lawn than I do. If it's Bermuda, oftentimes Bermuda seems to be the last one to wake up from winter. The Zoysia, St Augustine, Centipede all typically have more green in them than the Bermuda does. But we all want the grass to look green and be beautiful, and we want it to get there as fast as we can. Of course, a lot of that has to do with the weather, but I want to talk to you about some of the things that people do wrong and some of the things that people do right, and how you can make yours look better. Let's start with 3 do's for your lawn, your warm season grass lawn. Now, if you got cool season grass, maybe you're watching because you're just curious about warm season grass. So the cool season grass is when it gets springtime and the weather starts warming up, they start growing very aggressively. Our warm season grasses are just transitioning out of dormancy and just getting going, and when it gets very hot is when they really will take off, granted that you have enough water and the right nutrients and things like that. But let's talk about March, April, and May and what we're doing to our lawns. These in no particular order. I'm gonna give you 3 do's and 3 don'ts. So do start mowing your grass, okay? Now, you may say, Jason, my grass is barely growing. I mean, look at my grass. It's barely growing at all. But I may run the mower over this sooner than later, and I'm gonna tell you why. If you've let your grass get really long in the fall, and especially if it's a Bermuda lawn, and you've got, let's say, 4 inches of Bermuda grass, sticking up this tall, and what that ends up doing is it's providing kind of a canopy to the roots, and it keeps the sunlight from warming the roots as quickly. That dormant grass on a Bermuda lawn is never going to turn green again. You just need to get it out of the way, and that's why if you're going to bag your lawn, and I'm not necessarily saying you have to bag your lawn, but if you're going to, bagging on the first cut of the year makes the most sense to me. So, and you can cut it literally almost to the dirt with the Bermuda grass. Now I know mowers don't go that low, they may go to inch and a half, something like that. But if you drop it on the lowest setting, and if it's real thick, you may have to take it down in stages. But you get rid of that dormant grass, what you're doing is allowing the sunlight to get down there and warm the roots, and your yard should green up faster than people who do not mow early. So again, I'm in the Birmingham, Alabama market. You may adjust this schedule depending on where you are, but typically I want to go ahead and mow it at least one time in March just to get rid of that dormant grass. Now what I do with my mowing schedule is on the last cut of the year, let's say late October, I will go ahead, and let's say I've let it get up to 3 inches. I'll go ahead and take it down to 2 inches on that last cut of the year so that there is less grass that I'm gonna have to get rid of the following March. Okay, so then when March comes around, it's at 2 inches, I might take it down to 1.5 inches. Or maybe I can get it all the way down to 1.5 inches in October on the last cut of the year. So what that does at the end of the year, you're basically sending a message to your grass that I don't want you growing anymore, I don't want to cut you anymore, and you're getting rid of some of that that's going to be dormant over the winter, and you're going to have to get it out of the way for it to grow. Now, on a Zoysia lawn, I'm not going to scalp it down as low. It seems to put a little bit more stress on it. But I'm still going to take it down, and if you let it get super thick, that would be your chance to get it back down a little bit. Just know if you take a lot off, it may stun it a little bit. It may take a while to recover. Now, St. Augustine grass, typically we want to keep those a little bit longer, so I'm not recommending by any means to cut it down to 1 inch. But you might, with the St. Augustine grass, go ahead and take a little bit off, and kind of, once you start mowing it, to me it just kind of rejuvenates the grass and sends a signal to it that, hey, it's time to start growing. Now I know that, again, that's going to be based on the weather and a lot of stuff. The lawnmower is not actually communicating with your grass, but there may be some reality to actually cutting the tips of the grass blade off. that helps it to start growing faster. Centipede lawns, you can mow those low. If you've let it get thicker over the winter, then early spring would be a great time to take it back down again. If you take a lot of it off, it may take a little bit of time to recover, but you could take it down to an inch, inch and a half, and that would be the time to do it as your first cut of the year. Second thing I want to tell you to do is spray your pre and post emergent herbicides on your lawn. Now let me explain this, okay, because you don't want to screw this up. Typically you would have already done this hopefully in the winter time. So January, February in my area would be better. Now again, depends on where you live. But to get it out before the crabgrass germinates and things like that. So using a pre-emergent like prodiamine or something like that, and a post-emergent to help get rid of your existing weeds. So we use a product called Triplet that can help control dandelions, henbit, some of the common weeds you see. Triplet, I believe, is only labeled for Bermuda and Zoysia lawns. So on a Centipede lawn or St Augustine, we'd use atrazine for the post-emergent. But if you've waited till the spring and the weather's starting to warm up, it's better to spray it now than later, with an exception, okay? You don't want to go in there and spray a bunch of post-emergent herbicides on your Centipede and St. Augustine. So if it's already transitioning and it's starting to green up, then spraying many herbicides on your Centipede and St. Augustine can cause them to delay their green up and even turn them yellow, okay? So if you waited till March and it's transitioning green, then I would encourage you to go ahead and just let it green all the way up and then deal with the weeds with the post-emergent. But if it's still mostly brown or fully brown, then you can spray it. Once it starts turning green, don't spray it. And then once it's fully green, you can spray it. And we would use like a product like Change Up or something at a low rate for Centipede and St. Augustine lawns as a post-emergent. Now the Bermuda Zoysias, you can get away with spraying those during transition without typically as much noticeable delay in the green up. And the last thing I want to tell you to do in the springtime is do fertilize, but there's some things that need to be explained on that as well. So if your grass looks like mine, let me show it to you again. If your Bermuda grass is looking like this, and you're going to go buy some quick release fertilizer from the big box store or something like that, then I would encourage you to wait. And I would encourage you to look at the forecast and see. So for us, we're in the 60s still, and it's going to be in the 60s for the next several days. And so I would not put a quick release fertilizer on this Bermuda lawn, because what's going to end up happening oftentimes is, let's say it rains and you're still having some cool nights and the grass is just not really doing a whole lot. You're going to end up wasting a lot of that fertilizer and the nutrients. The grass is just not ready to use it yet. And so I would encourage you to wait. And when you see that the weather starts getting up in the 70s and 80s and the grass, you know, let's just say 60 or 70% green, and you've got warm weather coming, even next week here, we're looking in the 80s, then the Bermuda's going to green up quickly. So if we're getting up in the low 80s, high 70s, and it's getting mostly green and there's some rain in forecast, then you put your quick release fertilizer out there, you're going to get some results most likely. Now what I've done to get around this is I'm using a slow release fertilizer. So it's a polymer coated fertilizer I get from Harold's, and so we put it out early in the year on the Bermuda and Zoysia lawns before it's really a time for the grass to use the nutrients. But because of the way the fertilizer works, it's able to, you can put it out early and the nutrients will start to release as the weather warms up and as those soil temperatures rise. So I'm able to use that to my advantage and put the fertilizer out before it's time. So if you have that capability, you know, you can go with that route, and that's fine. If you're just buying some quick release fertilizer, don't waste your money and use it when the weather starts warming up and when the grass starts turning green, so that you get the results you're looking for. So typically on a Bermuda Zoysia lawn, that may be April, depending on the weather. In my area, when I can put some quick release fertilizer on it, or you can wait till late April, early May, and typically by then it's ready to be fertilized and it's growing, and that's a great time to fertilize your lawn. So on the Centipede St. Augustine lawns, I'm using an 1819 blend. I'm putting it out twice per year, and the rule of thumb is you don't want to put more than 2 pounds of nitrogen on your lawn for the calendar year per 1,000 square feet. So I'm putting about 0.85 pounds of nitrogen out per 1,000 square feet in May, and then come back with another 0.85 pounds of nitrogen in July, and for the Centipede St Augustine lawns. Now the Bermuda Zoysia, I'm going more nitrogen. What I've got is a 38% nitrogen blend that I'm putting out now, and I'll come back with another 38% nitrogen blend in a few months, and that'll carry me through the rest of the year. But again, that's a slow release fertilizer that I'm using. So let's talk about a few of the don'ts for your lawn in the spring. What I would encourage you to do, the first don't, is don't turn on your irrigation yet. Some people water their lawns all the time, and very often, even in the summertime, what we recommend to people is just water once a week and soak it really good once a week versus multiple times a week. Because what you do when you're watering very often is you're creating an environment that sometimes is very favorable for fungus as well as weeds. In our area in the spring, we usually get plenty of rain and the temperatures are still relatively mild. So there's just no need to add to that. In the market I'm in, I wouldn't even want to turn irrigation on until May and then run it through maybe September once a week. And that's if if we weren't getting a lot of rain. We had so much rain last year, I don't think anybody would have really needed irrigation in our area. Now I know it varies from area to area, but the point is the same. If your lawn is getting plenty of water, there is such thing as too much water, and it can lead to some problems. The second don't I want to tell you is don't freak out over a few spring weeds. It seems like sometimes people get some spring weeds, and again, most of those are going to be prevented with your fall pre-emergent. So you get them in your lawn, and maybe you got some POA and you got some things in your lawn, and if you've got a lawn that's kind of struggling and you start just bombing it with herbicide after herbicide in the springtime, you ultimately can do some damage to the lawn and set it back from greening up. So yeah, maybe you got rid of the weeds, but just use common sense. If you want to go out there and spray your fall pre-emergent and get ahead of the weeds, that will help greatly. Then if you want to spray it again in January, February, then that can help as far as getting rid of some existing weeds. You put a post-emergent in there, and then also put a pre-emergent to help get ahead of your summer weeds. But when it's transitioning, hopefully you don't have to go in there and just start blanking the yard and hammering it out with all kind of herbicides. Hopefully the weed pressure is not too much, and so you might do a little bit of spot treating. But don't forget about turf health and trying to put some nutrients back in the soil to help your lawn recover from wintertime. And that seems to be even more important with the Centipede and St. Augustine lawns. And the last don't I'm gonna mention is, and I'm not trying to contradict my last point, but don't miss your opportunity to get rid of some of those tough weeds. So if your grass is dormant or just starting to turn green, this is probably your best opportunity to go after some really tough weeds like broom sedge and Dallas grass and things like that, ones that I'll even use a non-selective herbicide and go in there and just start knocking them out before I'm going to do much damage to the lawn. Because once it gets on into April and May and everything's green, it's very difficult. So let's say you want to pound it with something like Tribute Total or those for Dallas grass or some of those grassy weeds, or if it's fully dormant, you can even use glyphosate. And all these products, you want to check the label, make sure you're wearing your PPE, follow the label. So if I've got a yard that's really messed up with tons of weeds and tough weeds, fall, over the winter, and then early spring are my best opportunities to try to get rid of those weeds, because once you get into summer, it becomes very difficult. Hey, thanks for watching. I'm Jason Creel. I've got almost 900 videos on the channel, been on YouTube for a long time. So if you're in the lawn care business or want to get into the lawn care business, including weed control and fertilization, I would encourage you to go to lawncarelife.com. That's my website. There's video courses, programs, pricing charts, all kind of documents over there. The weed control cheat sheet where I tell you a bunch of herbicides, the rates, the grass types, the weeds you can use on, things like that at lawncarelife.com. See you guys in the next video. Talk to you later.